Hi, I'm Machiavelli, and I'd still wreck Thorin at Quake, and I'm welcoming you to Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is going to be k1llsen. And while I think off the top of my head, technically you didn't do a Reflections interview, because I think I did one with you way back when my series was called Grilled, when I used to work for Team Acer. Yeah. And basically, like, that was really just the same thing, but I just made a new name when I left, because, like, whatever. If people don't know, back in the day when you signed those boilerplate contracts, they do just sort of say, like, and we own your soul and everything you ever did for us forever, and you don't own it at all. So, like, I just didn't want to have trouble on that. So I've already done one with k1llsen years back, which you can go look on YouTube. It won't be on my channel, but it'll be out there. And that covers quite a lot of his Quake Live career at the time. Or at least I'd say the period on Quake Live was the massive gaming and the IEMs and all those ESWC and stuff. Whereas obviously Quake became a bit more, just like StarCraft has its own circuit now, it's a bit more niche. And funnily enough, in similar fashion, there's going to be a lot of people watching this interview like, oh yeah, I love old school stuff. It's like, it's still going on now, you know. Like, you know, k1llsen's actually a champion now. Like, it actually isn't a dead game. It's just that. It's not League of Legends or whatever, you know, like the games that have like 1 billion people playing them. So actually, where I'd like to start out is this, k1llsen. In your career, like I say, because for me, it basically, after it left like IEM and then DreamHacks and stuff dropped Quake still was going on, but it was like it has been many times in history. It almost went a bit underground again, and it was this smaller pool of people, and there weren't new people coming in. It wasn't a push to make it mainstream, right? Quake as a game just does that at times. It has times when it's big, has times when it's smaller, and if you're a player, I mean, I've noticed Quake players are a bit more hardcore. They're not the ones that are like, might just pick up League of Legends or Counter-Strike. That's not really like a Quake way of thinking. You just think like, do I want to stay pro at this game? And if so, like, is it diminishing returns? Am I still into it? Right? I would ask you this question. What has kept you in Quake and Quake dueling for so many years? You've maybe had brief periods where you started to go off and said you were going to leave and all the rest of it. You always come back eventually. The siren call always brings you back, right?
I mean, there were always like, you know, crossing a street in life kind of things happening. So yeah, throughout my career, I took a couple of breaks for, you know, like here and there 2 years, here and there another year. And there was always then, you know, I got back to that kind of thinking, yeah, should I, you know, just pick it up again? Because I do have a bit of a name on the internet. So why shouldn't I use it? You know, maybe just pick up on streaming or whatever. So with the beginning of Overwatch back in the day, I did my streams like completely German, and you know, I had good audience and viewers have been rising. But yeah, then they changed everything. Very you know, US based league stuff. I knew about it very early, and there was also like you know, the information about Quake Champions being out very close after they shifted everything to the US. So, yeah, it just reminded me, you know, when you think about Quake, playing a Quake duel and winning a duel match gives you like a very specific feeling because, you know, it's all on yourself and it's a lot of pressure actually. You can just put on yourself. But if you're able to deal with that, then this feeling of victory in Quake is very specific. Like, absolutely. I've been playing so many games throughout, you know, my career. And yeah, winning matches in Quake always is a little higher, weights a little higher than on other games somehow. And yeah, that's just so attracting for me, especially as, you know, having the focus of being a competitive player. And then, of course, you know, from time to time being successful, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. With Quake Champions, I've been, you know, it seems like I've picked up the right, you know, made the right changes to, you know, be ready at tournaments anytime. And yeah, I'm there, and I can always have the shot for the very top. So, and that of course kind of boosts you. And if you then don't make it happen, for me, it's always like a, you know, motivation for the next one.
So if people don't know, when you had your career in Quake Live, and that was at one point in time, again, where Quake was very much like part of the mainstream, it was even actually like, I almost get nostalgic when I think of it, because it was even the era we don't have anymore, where when you would have a tournament, because it was like Intel Extreme Masters or DreamHack or ESWC, they even had that like cool aspect where there'd be all the other games there too, and then someone could watch the champion of this game, and then you could watch like some StarCraft guy play, and it was like the cross-pollination was crazy. So back then, it did feel like also games felt more alive in some way. But in this era, right, I would say people probably don't remember you as fondly as maybe they should. Like, I know back then people were very reductive. Like, obviously they used to just say like, you're the plus back rail player, which, spoiler, when they say that, by the way, that isn't a compliment, unfortunately. They're not saying like, oh, you're a really good player who understands like how to play defensively and use like range. What they mean by that is like, everyone's played some annoying guy on ZTN who just rails you and then runs on the corner. What they really mean is that it's almost like they're trying to diss you in a way, right? How do you see yourself when you were back then in Quake Live? What type of a player was k1llsen? Are there any grains of truth to this?
I mean, actually, I felt like myself, I've been quite an aggressive player, and that made me quite vulnerable at times, and making me lose a lot of important situations, actually. And I think if I would have had the knowledge I have right now, I would have been much more successful back in Quake Live. I mean, I had good times in Quake Live. Like, you know, I don't want to, you know, like pull it down or anything. Like, really great times. But I think I could have stepped up things a little more, especially more consistent. Because I needed my, you know, kind of a momentum to, you know, just keep the flow going. And then I was able to, you know, even win the most difficult matches. But if there was a bit of flow missing, then things got like really, really tricky for me to adjust. And that's something I really got inside of me right now. And, you know, if something unfortunate happens within the match, I'm able to adjust and then make the right approach or try to make the right approach. And if that doesn't work, you know, I readjust again and then until it works.
Yeah, because I would say at this time period, if you look at the results, like, to me, it's not as simple as like looking at like Cologne and be like, it's just a fluke. It's like, that's the tournament where everything went perfectly. Like, if you hit your A game, everyone knows you had amazing aim, very good rail. Like, you could beat everyone. I mean, you did in this tournament. The problem what you often had was you might have been one of the players who lost close matches more than almost anyone I can think of in Quake Live, mate. Like, if you were playing people like rapha and k1llsen, it's almost like they depended on this aspect, right? You could even be beating them in the game, but in the back of their mind, they were sort of like, if I can get it to a close scenario, like I can maybe this guy will do the wrong move or we can punish him or something. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely with you there. Like, it kind of put me in a position where, you know, the pressure maybe has been a little too much because I wasn't able to adjust as good and weren't as experienced as the other guys were in these kind of situations. They've been playing each other in exactly that situation like so many times, against so many different opponents, in so many finals, actually. Like, much more than I did back then. And yeah, I like the total catch up. I didn't make it happen somehow. There were only like those small shiny moments. And then, you know, next tournament, I found myself like, yeah, not in the mid, still at the top area, but top 5-ish, you know. And that's not what you compete for. If you compete, you want to win. And yeah, there was this slight edge missing, and my opponents did know how to play things down, especially when it, you know, the match itself became like very, very tight. And yeah, they exactly knew at some point I might lose my nerves, try a little more, you know, aggressive move to open that I don't have anything to back up. And yeah, that's actually very often how things went for me back then.
Was there anything about your style that you think just didn't fit Quake Live, specifically the game? I mean, it was a different game, obviously, than some of the other Quakes. Because, like, I also noticed, like I say, this sort of trend with how the game went. Like, it seemed like sometimes maybe, like, strategically you had a different vision of the game than these other players.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've been, like, the other guys had like a more professional approach already back in the Quake Live days, while I was still playing the game mostly because I enjoyed it so much. So my approach wasn't as professional as theirs. But yeah, I think that already can make a bit of a change within a match. And yeah, like I said, you know, have been changing things up, and now yeah, making the right decisions so far, and I hope it just keeps going. Like, it's still, you know, work, especially when it gets to tournaments, important matches or anything. A lot of work you have to put in. That's something I didn't understand as much back then, but I do today. Like, there is no stopping. Even if you feel good, even if you beat everyone, you can still improve, you know? There's still always, like, minor things you can improve. And, yeah, never stop working on yourself, especially.
Right, obviously, also in Quake Live, like I said, the main thing everyone always give you props for was your aim, but they did it in like a reductive way where it's like, that's all you've got, aim. And so famously, the players that used to always be in this category was you, Strength, Sparty. Like people just make it sound like you were just aim bots with a railgun. Like, is this unfair? Is there any truth to it? Like, do you see yourself? Is there any similarities between these players? Is it an unfair comparison?
No, it's actually the right comparison. I mean, for me, it was my rail. For strength back then, it was a lightning gun. And I mean, you never wanted to face us players with exactly these weapons. So, yeah, but with time, people knew how to play around that. And, we learned how to play around strength LG, for example, while others learned how to play around my ray gun. And yeah, I mean, ray gun always, and still today, is like the weapon I enjoy the most. And but now I'm making just a different approach with that weapon, and I just know how accurate I am. And back then I didn't realize like how good I really was at with aiming overall. And also over the years, especially with changing games, like switching from Quake Live to Overwatch, I've been understanding aiming overall in games a little more. So that made me shape up for Quake Champions, actually. So I've been able to transfer my ray gun aim, which was very flicky back then. It became a little more smooth nowadays. I mean, there's still some twitchy mouse movement going on, but yeah, I can also now aim really well with the lightning gun too. And yeah, if you want to make this kind of approach, I mean, you need to think about yourself. Like I said, I had a few crossings throughout my career, and had to think about how should I approach these kind of things, especially to be successful. If I make this decision now to go back into esports, I kind of have to bring it, and yeah, that just opened my eyes, kind of.
Right, after the period I was talking about where like the circuit in Quake was big, you were one of the people who kept competing, but the results mainly weren't that good. And it just eventually became, like for everyone, by the way, eventually it became where unless you go to QuakeCon, you just play those 125 FPS cups or the weekly cups that everyone knows. Which if people don't know, by the way, for people like me, the shit, like I loved going back when I was following other esports and being like, every week I just get like Cooler versus Evil. This is sick. But it's not that great if you're a competitor. Like you want to be the big lad on the stage and win the big prize money and stuff. So how did you keep going during this downtime? Because I noticed right at the end of Quake Live, you did have that last run at that big QuakeCon, which was pretty cool. But there was some barren periods here where it must have been tough, just sort of motivation-wise, to keep going, right?
I mean, before that, I actually had like a 2-year break before I came back for that tournament. Yeah, I was just putting some work in and made me become, I think, third place, if I remember correctly. Evil or rapha got first.
It was rapha first, Evil second, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they had a great final. They played just on a level above. I saw within the matches, but I've also been battling with Evil a lot, and he was my opponent. I think that was like a big issue for me. He was my opponent in the winner bracket, and yeah. He knew how to play me because of all these cups we had back then, the weekly cups, and we've been playing each other in the finals like so many times. And yeah, he was just reading me like a book throughout the whole match, actually. And it kind of made me rethink my because back then I was streaming like 100% of my practice. But since then, I'm not doing so anymore. Like, partially I stream it, but then there's like the bigger part, actually, I'm not streaming because there's a little different focus on yourself, even if you can forget about the chat and everything, but it's still running. And sometimes you have a look on the chat and everything. So you're not like 100% focused on what's happening on your screen. And yeah, all these kind of things made me now a better player. I mean, that's for sure, and that's something that has been missing in the past. Like especially when it comes down to the 2016 event, QuakeCon, the last Quake Live event. I mean, it was a great event, absolutely. I at least met my own expectation a little further. Would have been great also. But I also came from a little break and catched up very quickly. And yeah, it still was a great event. Like they just played better. That's really what I can absolutely say.
I mean, this is a perfect segue because I want to ask you about some of the players you played in Quake Live before we go to Quake Champions. So Evil is one of them, because if this is the guy where actually he was really unlucky with how the circuit went, because right when he got really good on LAN was exactly when all the LANs just disappeared and he just had a couple towards the end, and then famously, like a lot of players in Quake Live, he has the same story. Like, and then I was doing really well until I met Rapha. It's like there's a million people have that fucking story. So Rapha or Cypher just did that to everyone, didn't they? So the question I would have is this: for someone who doesn't know that much about Evil's game, what is tough about playing him? Because he seems like the ultimate player to me, dude, where it's like, you know, in like certain sports, you have the philosophy of like, you just hang in there when they're having their moment. Like, you know, in basketball, if they're hitting 3-pointers, it's like, look, they're going to miss eventually. Like, he must be the guy where if you think that, it's like sometimes he just doesn't, does he? He just hits every fucking plasma ball, every reel. You think like, I'm in control now, like he's out of position, but it seems like a very difficult player mentally just to play against.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like his mental was like so good. There was like almost no way to, you know, make him think about anything different once he was sitting in front of his PC. Like it was so tough to play him, and there was like, you know, you couldn't pull off any emotions out of him. Like even if you tried so hard to squeeze him, there was no way. And he always kept things tight and always overthinking his not overthinking, like thinking twice, 3 times about his next decision. And decisions on the map, and he just kept his flow. Even he was you know, like backwarding on the map, he just kept his flow going, kind of still on the map. Even he was, you know, just running with low HP and everything, but he knew exactly what to do and the safest way to do. The only thing he lacked a little bit is like the aggressive moves. Actually, I feel like. You know, really everything from the defensive part, the change from defensive to aggressive was great. But when it comes down to the real punishment, being aggressive on the map when your opponent is doing mistakes, that was a slight weakness. But it was still so tough to exactly hang in there and then, you know, be on his toe.
What about, obviously, a classic one for you was Cooler, mainly also because everyone knows Cooler. Like, he doesn't just play you, he also tries to, like, mentally dominate you as well with the trash talk and the banter, and he'll even do that thing. Like, I always noticed a classic thing he did that, like, great sports stars like Floyd Mayweather do. They'll sort of pretend like they don't know who you are. Like, oh, whoever this, you know, German guy and plays. Like, you played me, like, 50 times, including practice, but, like, it's all part of their game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it also belongs to the game, to sports, to esports, you know, some mind games. I mean, try to get every advantage possible. And I mean, nowadays I also, you know, tell myself with whatever makes you feel better. I mean, yeah, then play with it or do it, whatever. If it makes you feel better, then yeah, why not? As long as you're not harming anyone, of course, and you know, not yourself also. So it's absolutely fine, and yeah, that's also some kind of approach I you know, learned about with time. Whatever makes you feel better, use it if you can use it, and yeah, that was something Cooler has been using, like, you know, before the match, even starting with his trash talk and sometimes to remember, and I'm also, you know, mixed feelings about these times, of course, absolutely. Sure. But I've been learning my lesson back then, and it also made me grow. So it wasn't a bad thing in the end.
Yes. If anyone's never seen Cooler in real life, by the way, if you watch the game and you see him spam those smileys and you think, what a nice guy. Like, those are the most sarcastic smileys of all time. Like, those are like the ones where he's just sort of doing it like, fuck you, I'm beating you in the game. Like, he wasn't being nice to those. So the other player, obviously, is Rapha, right? This is the guy. Look, like I said, a lot of people had problems playing against Rapha. What was the challenge of trying to beat this guy?
To stop his flow, and even now in Quake Champions, that's exactly what his strength, and he's the strongest with that. Like once he gets like the control on the map, it's really tough to push him off it, because he always makes like such good rotations on the map, around the map, and the routes he's using, that there's not a lot left for yourself. So that kind of narrows the openings, but at the same time, it gives some. but you really need to think about how you can get that kind of opening going on to, push him a little off the control. And then that was like the only way you were able to at least get things close. It was not a secure win from that point, but get it close and then try to stop him from, having this crazy flow on the map. He's been running and he's still running.
Right, obviously, when Quake Champions came along, nobody who was a Quake dueler really knew what this game would be like and how it would affect the game, because even the premise is like, what? Because basically they took the premise of like almost like character-based aspects of like MOBAs, like League of Legends and Dota, where you have these different characters, but you're playing it in duel. And so if people don't know, you might, if you've seen a Quake duel, especially Quake 3, you might think that the characters are different, but those are just skins. Like the joke is, even Keel, like the giant one, is the same as playing like one of the tiny women ones. Just the hitboxes get covered by the giant thing. In fact, funnily enough, that's why using the big one can sometimes also be bad. You think you've shot the toe with the rail and it doesn't hit the hitbox, does it? We all know that classic one. Whereas in Quake Champions, it really is different. And in fact, obviously, then you had all the ults that were different. And then you have to know, not only can you play that character or not, but you have to sort of know how to battle against it. And then it adds in all this extra complexity. So when Quake Champions initially came along, were you one of the people who was able to immediately embrace the premise? Were you put off by that? Were you part of the crowd that was like, just make it all the same character again and just make duel like it used to be? Which angle were you on?
I was actually a fan of, bringing something like totally new and fresh. And it also attracted me like a lot about the game. You had to open up your mind as a Quaker to get into that kind of Quake. Actually, I also remember like so many people have been screaming about bring back this and that, and I was actually glad, and I'm still like I'm an absolute fan of the round-based duels we had in the beginning. Like now, and since a few years, we are playing time limit duels again. 10 minutes, like just the way we're playing, kinda since how many years? So I was really a fan of the round-based duel because it was like fresh idea, and it also played like very intense.
Sure.
And every single decision, like 3 lives on a single map, and every single decision mattered like so much but that was also at the same time the issue, because people didn't like to risk something, and we had so many overtimes and such long overtimes.
I mean, people
on.
play a bit defensive, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because you only had 3 lives, so that made things like super difficult, and you didn't want yourself to find in a disadvantage. So but it also, as a player, it made it like super intense and super fun, because there was like so much mind games going on within the match. I mean, there's still now, of course, but it's just a different kind of competitive environment you had back then, because each life mattered. Now we have 10 minutes. There's always time to catch up if you keep things like close as possible. Let's say, as long as your opponent is not running away with the lead. And you can always make the comeback happening. It was a little bit more difficult in the round base. So I can understand like both decisions, but I was an absolute fan of the round base.
Right. One thing I noticed as well was in the early days, it looked like Quake Live again, like you were having like up and down results, but then you had your big breakthrough, which is obviously winning that Italian Open, which, by the way, if people don't know, it wasn't just a normal LAN. Like, this is some like true old school Quake shit. They managed to get it where it was actually in like a real church that was like an old church, and they made like that, which is some shit like out of like a Quake level or something. It could be like DM2 on Quake 3 or something. Like, it's a pretty cool aesthetic. So what was this event like? Because it seems like this was like one of the big turning points for you in Quake Champions, that you weren't just an also ran or just a guy playing online.
Yeah, I mean, I was already very close of making my success happening, but that event seemed to be the breakthrough somehow. I in the beginning I had quite a challenging time with Quake Champions. Getting adjusted to all the different champions, movement systems, abilities also. It was tricky in the beginning, and there were players which had like a better approach already and had a little advantage over other players, because they've been learning things like a better way, not better than others, but just in a better way. And to that event, somehow I was just feeling it from the beginning to its end. And maybe it was because the place was so special, like, going there and being in that church, in that small church. I mean, not that small even. It's a very special atmosphere. How it was built up, it was still, it made it feel still like a gaming event at some point. But then you just had a look above, and it was huge, like the top, the ceiling's so high, and then just getting in the morning to the venue itself, looking at the church and going inside and playing your games in there. Was very special.
Right, obviously one of the big events in your career was winning the kick-off of the Quake Pro League when they made the formalised like Bethsaida League, where they have all the prize money in the regions and all that jazz. And crucially, this was just before the whole world went on the internet. We had to start going back to the old days. So it was even when it was a proper circuit. And I'll just give you the backstory. Like, if people don't know me, I'm a mad Cooler fanboy. So that's actually how I even knew this was legit. It wasn't, you didn't just fluke the event. Because I was watching loads of the Cooler games at the time. And at the time, he'd gotten really good again. Like, this was another game where he was looking like could be the best player in the world. Like, he had his whole game on. He actually was even fitting that whole like round-based system back in the day. He'd got a few champions that he was pretty good on. And I remember watching this final, dude. And I remember watching it and just thinking, because I'm coming from the like Cooler fanboy, wanting him to win. And at the end of the game, I was like, I can't even hate on that. Like, what did Cooler do wrong? Like, k1llsen just fucking just wrecked him the whole way through. Like, you just played a really great fucking match. So this feels like when you actually like, from here onwards, you've been basically like one of the main dominant players in the game. So was this an important event for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a Quake player winning the QuakeCon, and it's been my first QuakeCon victory, if you want to win an event, it's actually QuakeCon. Like that event is just so special. And that's, nothing else matters. QuakeCon, that's where I wanna win. And that's how much work I put into that. Just the way I'm talking about it. I just wanted it so badly. And I think from time to time, we can even see like the players, who really wants it and who still wants it, but didn't do what's necessary to really take it. And I think, I can see it actually nowadays quite well, the differences in players, even when they meet up in the grand final. You can see a difference in, someone who's really pulling off the work and just, having a look in his eyes, how he's sitting in front of the monitor, while the other just, looks tiny bit different and having just this tiny bit more casual approach at points. And that can already be the edge to lose the grand final, actually. And for me, it was just from the beginning. I liked the mode we played it, like playing against every single player at the event. It was like 19 matches.
It's more like a chess tournament if people don't know. It's how they do things, as far as I know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I like a lot, because it takes a lot, or you need to have a lot of stamina to go through these, that amount of matches, really. But I do like these kind of, pressure situations, and they're making me grow. And throughout the matches, I've been, shaping up my game even more, like every single match. Throughout the 19 matches, I had I think 2 losses. Cooler actually won against me, and I also lost against RAISY, but I won all my other matches, if I remember correctly, and it made me come up a second place on the leaderboard. And the tournament itself was built up like that. There's still a deciding match. Like, you're not second, second at the tournament. There was still like a deciding match between those 2 placeholders every single time. Like 1 playing against 2, 3 playing against 4, and so on. So I still had like I just secured the grand final spot, kind of, with placing second on the leaderboard throughout these 19 matches. Cooler finished first. he played so dominant, but right after I lost to him the leaderboard match, I knew exactly if I meet him next time or if I have the chance to play him next time, I know exactly what I have to change to make it happen. And yeah, that's what I brought into the final of the kickoff event, and made it, made it work without any edges.
Was this one of the best games you've ever played? You looked like you were in the zone.
Absolutely. Like I never reached that kind of form again since then. Really, I've been understanding like every single sound cue, and timing my opponent movements almost to perfection. And if my opponent wasn't approaching at one side of the map or around one corner, or there was no sound cue going on whatever area, I knew exactly what he's up to next. And yeah, that's just, I mean, also how much work I put in before to know these kind of things,
Right, obviously, later in the Quake Pro League, you had also the big win over Cypher when you won like the stage 3 or whatever it was, but this was when we had to go online. What I wanted to ask was this, bearing in mind Quake especially, like one of the cool things about it as a game is I do feel like it's way less like a sport and it's more like something like chess or poker or something, where like the top players, the joke is it's like just almost like being on holiday with people, like every event you go to, you're going to see the same 8 or 10 people, you're going to play them, you're going to probably have to beat this guy in the semi-final, this guy in the final. It's like, it's a different challenge. You're not just playing the whole world. You're playing these specific really fucking good players. Most of them who've played 10, 15 years in the game, and they're all like legendary players. That's why for me, it's more like chess masters or something, right? When you had to go back online though, like that must be a bummer even if you win, right? Like online play, there's still something lacking from a real tournament, like you say, like being a QuakeCon or something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it still means something because, I mean, you won a tournament, right? And you can also see the hype throughout, Twitch and everything, social media. It still gives like a good feeling, a tournament feeling, but there's still a bit missing. Like even when we've been in Katowice, like we had it was the last LAN event before COVID times, before things went to online, and there was already no audience. So that already felt like kind of sad because everything was set up. We had a stage, and there wasn't like no one sitting in front. Then apart from the players, but it wasn't as many. So that was already quite sad moment actually to see and to play like that. I mean, it was still cool to be there, sure, but yeah, it's just totally different that moment. And it's the same with online. I mean, you can really compare it. Being on LAN, of course, the game feels overall much better. Of course, it's the same in other games, but yeah, you have just more like a head-to-head battle on LAN. Not everyone has a different machine. Everyone is playing on this same setup and everything. Things are being played out on fair circumstances, and while on online you still you can have like a better PC. I also throughout the last 2 years, I think it was when I made the change to 360 refresh rate monitor. You can get a bit of advantages going on. So especially when playing online. I mean, get the best gaming machine, run 360 refresh rate, and it's gonna help you out to a degree. Absolutely, it's gonna shorten the way of how quickly you can adapt your aim to different styles, because things just more reactive, more fluid, and it's not a big difference though, compared to 240. But still, you can get the slight advantage while the other player doesn't have this kind of advantage, and it will cost the other players a few more hours of practice, making the right thinking behind that, and yeah, that's also kind of sad thing about, of course, online gameplay. You never know what's going on behind the scenes.
If I look at some of even the like bad tournaments you had during this online period, the problem is, look, these are all the same players and everyone is trying still. It's online. In fact, it's all we had back then. No one knew if we were going to have lands again. Everyone was actually trying to sort of, I even think props to all the players that kept playing. You sort of kept esports alive. Like if everyone had to just quit like real sports, who the fuck knows where it would be right now? It's actually quite cool we were able to transition back into the lands. But when I see some of the bad results though, the problem is when I look at how good you've been on land once you hit the top, looks like some of these are like a product of online play though, because the other thing about online players, it also feels like it means the amount of people who could like win the tournament becomes way bigger list. Like the thing about the legends I'm talking about before is, you know, you're gonna have to beat Rapha or Cooler to win like a big LAN. If you're playing online, suddenly that guy who just does well in cops could win the fucking tournament or the upper bracket or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, these kind of things. I mean, there was still like a limited amount of players who were able to pull these kind of things off. But yeah, I mean, throughout the practice, you know, you start to understand each player more and more, and you know how, you know, you may be able to tell like how far this guy is gonna be able to go in a tournament. And when we practice online, of course, you even can like tell how far in an online environment he's gonna make it. Like you can just test out things throughout practice. That also makes like you know, playing duel in Quake like very special. You can just test your opponent in so many different ways, especially in Quake Champions, with how dynamic it is with all the different champions and maps abilities. So there's a lot to test out against each player, and it also gives you like a very good feeling about the overall pool of heroes or champions your opponent can play. So that kind of opens things already up to reach a higher spot with in a tournament. But if someone is not able to play, you know, all the champions, for example, then it kind of limits his abilities already to reach the higher position. So yeah, you can, you know, just test out throughout the practice, and then you already know, okay, there might be a good top 5 who are able to take it on a good day. Maybe a top 6, but above that, really it just shows throughout who really puts in the work that's needed to get to that point that you're able to secure a top 5 spot. And I think from a top 5 spot, it's not a lot anymore left to make it to a grand final. And once you reach the grand final, you know, you just need one more small step to win that tournament. But you need to think about it. You know, if things didn't work, if you lost the grand final, it's not about, you know, giving up or even if you played like a really good match, you still lost. So you still need to think, how can I just turn this disadvantage I had throughout the match and that made me lost? How can I turn it into my advantage? And that's how you need to think about it. You know, taking it step by step, especially early on, like Vendra did. You know, like the Italian, our youngster, one of our youngsters, who came fresh into the scene, and at some point, like he felt quite helpless. 2018 PGL tournament. Where he felt like he feels stuck. He was already good, like making good approaches and everything, but he felt like really stuck because there was like no moving on from that point. And yeah, I picked him up and I told him a few things, and 3 years later he won the online QuakeCon. I mean, it was online, yes, but still, it was the QuakeCon event, and you know, QuakeCon even online is it's still a QuakeCon somehow, you know.
Sure.
So if there's a tournament, you want to win the QuakeCon, and yeah, he made it happen, and was just great to see. Now he just needs to bring exactly this kind of mental state onto LAN tournaments, and I think he was very close in the last finals because there's one big dream we have is meeting each other in the grand final and then playing it out, and that would be great. Unfortunately, like. We missed it by an inch, and yeah, he kind of slipped, and yeah, unlucky. But maybe next time.
One thing you're talking about here is something that I've also observed from following all these different esports for so many years, and especially knowing the people who are competing and talking to them and find out what they were thinking. It's a really unusual premise. Like basically in life, people might find this thinking, I'd say in the world of like self-help or like the idea of how you become successful as a businessman, an entrepreneur or whatever. There's a famous premise, right, that goes that people always think success is like a straight line from like, I wanted to do this to like, I succeeded, like brilliant, it all just went great. Whereas like the reality is success is like all over the place. It's like you fail about 1,000,000 times. There's a famous quote that even says something like, the master has failed more times than the beginner has tried. Like the idea is you just don't see that. You see the finished product when he succeeds and you think, wow, he's just a natural, isn't he? Whereas what your career actually is very common, I would say, among people who've had great success is, it's like you say, it's when you can sort of, the loss doesn't just scar you and make you not ever able to win. If anything, it sort of shows you how you can win, like what you were lacking, what you had to work on. And as people will see in your career, when you've overcome that, because the way you described it also is great. I often say it's like a ladder you have to climb. Like you have to be good online first, then you have to go to a LAN. You just go to a LAN, you're going to lose the first time. Then you're going to make a playoff match. Then you're going to lose to rapha or something. Then you got to make, you just gradually move up. And then, as you say, even making a final, isn't it? Like you might make the final, but then all the pressure comes in. You lose the final. You think, fuck, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. But once the key thing is this, there's a great saying they have in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a sport I'm into, where they say, what the analogy is, when you're the nail, just hang in there, because obviously the people are going to smash on you. But when you get your chance to be the hammer, there you go. That's what you were waiting for. When you get the fucking hammer, that's what I'd say you've done in your career, mate. Once you had the chance to be a hammer, you fucking smashed some of these guys who used to torture you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no other way to describe it. That's how I made it happen, how I made it work. Even with having all like this huge amount of experience by playing for such a long time in esports and being part of this, still I had such a hard time to get within the first 2-3 months to get into Quake Champions. But I just didn't give up and kept going, and just thought about my next steps, like what I need to do, and even it was just very small steps. There's many of them, even in life, you need to think about and then make the right decision and then you move on.
Have you ever had those moments, though? Have you ever wondered, listen, this is also a common thing when people are on this path. Sometimes you see the guy, and especially if it's someone like Cypher or rapha or something, you're just like, they're always lucky, because that's the famous thing if you lose to fucking these players. It always feels like, it was that close. They just always got around that corner. They always got that one. Do you ever think, maybe I'm just not a winner? Maybe I'm just the guy who's always going to come second? Has that ever been in your head?
Of course, there were moments I had this kind of thinking in my mind, absolutely. But then on the other hand, I seem to be like a guy who's not giving up that easily, So I just needed like a little nap overnight, and then I felt motivated again slightly, And then each day that passed by, I felt even more motivated to catch up again, and then overcome myself, just not overcome the other, but myself on my steps, moving up the ladder.
Right, this most recent World Championship that you've won, because we're back on land now, we're having the proper studios, and there's no more excuses. This must have been an incredibly satisfying one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like coming back on LAN felt so great, and all the practice and frustration within the practice, just made it worth it, and that just was such a huge relief. RAISY still pulled off a very good match. I think, it was after such a long time. It's even hard to describe. Of course, some audience in front, a little bigger stage with audience in front, gives you a little more special feeling even. But this was a very good start back into it. And I think the absolutely right approach, instead of going huge again immediately, things could just turn out not the way you want.
Right, RAISY is obviously someone who's mainly made his name in Quake Champions. Actually, has been one of the games where from early on he's been very good, and he actually has been able to break through even past the level, like you say, in the vanguards of the world of hit at. But he's obviously someone where he's had a pretty tortured career himself. Like the amount of finals this guy's lost, it's pretty nuts at this point in time. What do you think holds him back? What stops him becoming the number one player?
Nothing but himself, to be fair. I mean, I think he's not at that point. I mean, yeah, reaching these grand finals. I mean, we just talked about grand finals a little earlier, but yeah, once you lose, you need to work on yourself. Make a different approach. You need to think about what kept me from winning this grand final, and I think that's something. He's, you know, maybe he thinks about it, sure, but not making the right approach. So he's still trying to find his way. At some point, he might gonna find it, but maybe not. We will find out. Yeah, it's really only he's stopping himself. He's a great player, like on a very high skill level, and making not a lot of mistakes throughout the matches and throughout the maps. But then there are moments he's just stopping himself somehow. It's really difficult to describe. Maybe it only has to do about stamina, that he's not able to really think not just one step ahead, but more like 2 or 3 steps. If something doesn't work, have a backup plan. These kind of things. I think there are more just moments where it takes him a little too much time to make that kind of adjustment, and then it's already too late very often.
It seems like you've had some pretty classic matches. That's why it was so fitting that the final was the way it was. Like, you two have had some great battles over the years. What do you think of your dynamic playing against him?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, I mean, the match already kind of starts when we do like map and champion picks, for the match. So that's actually the moment the match is starting. So you already need to think what you want to give your opponent, and what you want to play yourself, to give your opponent the hardest time possible, while not giving him an opening, because there are always like some stronger champions on certain maps. So there's a lot of thinking behind that pick and ban process, and you need to keep that in mind, and you also need to work on that a lot. Like I did work on that a lot 2019, and even now I can still think about it the way I practiced back then and use it nowadays. So even like from 3 years ago, I can use that kind of knowledge I got myself into, and yeah, that's also something I just did within the match against RAISY. He then won the first 2 maps, and I mean, I knew I still had like this one map advantage in my pocket because being in the winner bracket, and I won against him in the winner bracket also. So I think it was a justified advantage, actually, being just the guy that dropped him down. I would be absolutely open to discuss this kind of rule thing, make it like 2 best of 5s or something in the grand final to even things out a little more. But yeah, he just lost against me, so I felt absolutely justified with that kind of advantage going into the grand final. And I think, you just should be happy having the second chance. If there's a loser bracket existent, just be happy, and then just bring your best match possible, the best you can play that moment. If it's not the very top you can play, it still doesn't matter, but play the best you can pull off at that moment. And he already made mistakes throughout the picking process in the grand finals, so I knew as later we get into the match, as more my advantage is rising. And that's absolutely what happened. And then also, how practice has been going, making the right adjustments in the right moment, the right place, even like especially on the last map. It was like not a super action-packed, match going on. Like I just used my advantage I had on the map, and I made it work in the end. Already the picking process was kind of, he made a few mistakes there, like 1 tiny mistakes, 1 big mistake, and it gave me the advantage throughout the match.
This is something I want to ask about because obviously that is the primary difference even in how a match works from old Duel. Like the joke is, I'm sure some players now that have gotten used to this wish we had this the whole time in Quake. Like imagine it back in the day if there was a way you could have like limited Cypher being able to just use really fast champions or something, you know, and like there obviously wasn't that. There was one kind of a character, and if Cypher's really good at something, you just have to put up with that. That's life, isn't it? Like there's no rotation of what you can take or give away from him. You're just two players, and however good you are. So give me some thoughts, because obviously you've mastered it seems to some degree out the current players. What kind of like, without giving away necessarily the secrets to the specific players, what are some of the things you can do in terms of the map or the champion that can potentially adjust your chances in the duel?
I mean, there are more dynamic maps with certain champions. You can just, be like super quick around the map. So that's in that kind of scenario, you are like the player who plays like more for the overall map flow control. And you just try to pressure your opponent at any given time, and try to not give your opponent any step on the map. But at the same time, you need to kind of think, what happens if my opponent is the one running the control? Do I still have like an escape route or escape ability that I can use? Or, some kind of burst damage ability, which we also have. Even my opponent has like the control and the bigger stack and everything. Do I have like an ability to, if he catches me off guard, to maybe pull off incredible damage in a very short moment? And you always need to think like, I give maybe a speedy champion, but a speedy champion has a little lower stack overall. And then, just to counter that kind of aggressive play and more fast-paced play on the map, you go for like a burst damage ability champion, like Ranger is with his orb. Can pull off like 200, 300 damage in a very quick succession, and like it only takes him 1 second literally, and you're done. And that's how you need to approach every single map, with how it's been built and what kind of movement techniques you can use the best on that map. So there's like a double jump, there's like a wall jump, which kind of shortens. You can shortcut some routes, which you can make really good use of. Then you have other champions who with orb and ranger. You can just teleport to that destination of the orb, for example, which for other maps can be like very useful, especially like big maps. You go to an item, throw your orb already on the other side of the map, pick up the item, and the next second you're already on the other side of the map. So you always need to keep these kind of things in life, but also stack in the end. Being a tank with the biggest stack can also matter. If it's a tiny map and you're fighting against a tank and he spawns fresh on the map, but he already has like a huge stack you need to fight against. And, it can be really tricky if these kind of scenarios are happening and you just barely survive the fight. And then, the guy spawns in front of you as a tank. He doesn't need to do a lot. And he has such a good control from that moment already going on, and just needs to secure one item. And you don't want to fight that quickly against him. And depending especially on his champion and on his ability, like Keel with granites is still like burst damage he can pull off, and you don't want to step into these granites or get hit by them.
The other thing that I know old school people hated or got mega tilted by in the early days obviously was the abilities, because like there's nothing like this existed in an old Quake. And as you're saying, like the ability to like teleport around and go invisible and stuff, like that already sounds, if you've never played it, like the nightmare if you're a Quake player. Like, what the fuck, what are we doing? And so what I want to ask was this, cause in old Quake, like, look, maybe like Cypher made Railing look OP, but that's because Cypher's OP. It's not because the rail's OP. Like you see a bad player with the rail, it looks perfectly fine. So back then you couldn't really complain. But obviously every game that involves balance around heroes, characters, champions always has people complain about the balance and what's OP and this ability's broken, etc. What have you thought generally about the balance in the game? Are there OP things? Because one of the problems I know that is a common complaint if someone says, I think this is broken. People go, well, why don't you just use it? But as we're talking about here, maybe that's not your style of champion. Maybe it's not the style of your play. It's not as simple as you can just use it yourself. So what have you thought about this aspect? It's obviously a fresh aspect to Quake players.
I think we're actually overall in a very good decision. I mean, there's still adjustments that need to be made from time to time because people will just learn different things throughout the time because we don't know everything yet. Even we've been playing this game already for such a long time. There's still stuff to learn about it. And yeah, the cool thing about Quake Champions and its champions and different maps and how the maps are built is that different champions are a little stronger on some maps, but weaker on others. So that makes things like really, really interesting. And that's also, you need to put into your thinking process, pick and bans. Like you can always avoid if there's like a specific map, and there's like Anarchy being the best champion on that map. You have two decisions to make. Do you want to ban the map or do you want to ban the champion? But then you still need to consider how good is my opponent with that kind of champion? Can he make him that useful on the next map also, which could come into play? So yeah, you kind of need to think one or two steps ahead already. What my opponent wants to play and what can I do against this? And that's something that's built up great actually because you can avoid certain situations by banning a champion or banning a map and then turn the situation around that my opponent gets into exact that situation and he needs to think even if it means like maybe like both players are not playing their best champions, but it's part of the game. Like you need to play in the end, you need to play every champion as if it's your best champion.
Obviously, to make this like political, we'll just pick a past one. So the meta's gone since then. There's no worries, guys. Nothing to complain about. Is there a time period in the past of Quake Champions that you would pick out where you do think one thing was mega broken, like one character or one map? It was just too fucking broken. Like this was just auto win almost.
I mean, back in the day, we had Clutch, a tank who is also. I mean, he's still in the pool and everything, but he got adjusted a little, so he's not that strong anymore. I think if you master him, he's still very strong, and you can still make like really good use of him. But he doesn't feel necessary to the champions pool anymore. You need to be able to play because his movement works a little different compared to all the other champions you have in the pool. So that makes him very specific and sets him in a very specific skill set also. But yeah, he's a tank. He's the fastest champion, even almost in the game. Being able to dash like you've been able to do in Unreal Tournament, for example, who knows it? And that made him at a certain moment very, very OP. Like everyone just had to play him. But now things, it's also the skill difference between the players is getting over time is getting a little, things are getting tighter and tighter. So it's not that much of a big advantage anymore if you get like a strong champion. Your opponent might still be able to overcome you with another champion because he just is making the right approach to that kind of playstyle I wanna bring on the table. And if your opponent is just countering that with certain moves on the map, there's still nothing you can do, even if you have like a very strong champion. I mean, it's always a trade you have to give there. It's like being a fast champion but having a lower stack. Being a medium champion, kind of safe way around the map. You're able to take a couple of shots before dying, so you always have like options, but it's depending on the champion you are playing. Ranger can orb away, but other champions can't, which are medium champions. So it's always a very big thinking process behind that. How you want to approach certain things, and back then it was all about Clutch and Anarchy for sure. Like these two especially were very strong. Especially in the round-based time we've been playing, and everyone at some point had to hop onto these two champions, and they were like absolute meter. Right now, there's a slight tendency that light champions seem to be a little stronger, but it's still depending on the champion you have available to play against that light champion. But also on the other hand, map depending. So it's not always like that. This light champion will be the strongest on every single map. It's still adjustments that you need to make.
If for some reason Quake Champions ended tomorrow, obviously we hope it doesn't, and there's still a circuit there. If it ended tomorrow, what champion would you want k1llsen to be associated with? What should your legacy be? Which would be the iconic k1llsen champion for you?
Absolutely Nyx. I mean, that's what players are also scared the most to play against my Nyx. Yeah, I mean, all the players, like I make very different approaches with Nyx and her ability. Since she has like the ability to go invisible, and you can't hit her for like 3 seconds. So you always have like an escape plan, but you can also use it to surprise your opponent. So you can always go aggressive or defensive, or just keep it in your pocket if you are the one getting surprised. So, but at the same time, she's a light champion, so she has a lower stack, and with burst damage, she's done quite quickly. So she's still very dangerous, even if you have this kind of ability going on. But yeah, that absolutely, since the beginning, it's my absolute favorite champion.
Okay, right. One thing about Quake Champions thus far is obviously we got robbed of that time period where it was the online games and we didn't get all the lands that we wish we could, etc. But we still had quite a few tournaments. And if we look now and we put people's resumes next to each other, it's basically you or Rapha would be the best player ever in Quake Champions, right? So the question I have is this: do you agree? Do you think it's you? Would you say you're better? And also, the obvious way we could solve this is now we've got the lands back. We want the two of you to play in like a QuakeCon final, right?
Oh yeah, well, it would be great. I mean, to meet him again in a grand final. It's been a while. The last time, like 12 years ago, in a grand final. I mean, it's difficult to answer. Like any of us can take it any given day. It's. I mean, I'm feeling good overall playing against him. Like I do have opponents where I feel much worse than playing against him. So, but it doesn't make me the better player, to be fair. Like he showed that he's the GOAT of Quake. Like there's no other way around. Like pulling these things off in Quake Live, and then also, I mean, with time to adjust, but then getting into that exact champion state in Quake Champions also shows how professional he is.
Sure.
And yeah, there's no better player. Like really, I can't answer this question, especially that there are also other players that have their peaks onto the top.
Sure. Right, one question I have is, like I said before, for people who think Quake died, well, all you need to know is, because of how hard it was, especially to make like a final in Quake Live, k1llsen didn't make that much money in Quake 3, Quake Live. He's made way more in Quake Champions. In fact, the last few years, combined with having a salary, being in big, etc., and streaming, like I'm sure now it's actually a pretty cool little like job to have, right? It's no longer just a case of like you're a nerd and then you go occasionally to a tournament and maybe bring like a €5,000 check back or whatever. Like now it's a real career, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like something to build on. Yeah, I want to keep going. I mean, that's also something that keeps you, at least to a degree, motivated to do what you're doing. But yeah, since the beginning, I've been in the early Quake days for my career. I've been playing just out of excitement and enjoying the game so much. And I'm still bringing these kind of emotions into my games. It's also something I'm very known for my emotions. But I managed to, turn those negative emotions kind of into a positive thing for myself. Something I had to practice hard on, because emotions has losing me a lot of matches in the past. And so at one point I just made these negative thinking I had about myself was in a match, was an unlucky situation or something that completely threw off the map. To just think different about that. And I still show my emotions when I'm playing, after matches, before matches, within the match. But it's just a little different nowadays, and especially more positive. Like I can even within the match show the emotion if my opponent did something great, like I need to show the emotion at some point. There are just moments which emotionally throw me off a little bit, but I'm still like totally focused in the game, like it's kind of separated from each other. It's really it's difficult, but I had to make this kind of change for my game also, because just like I said, emotions have been losing me matches a lot in the past, and I had to adjust something, and that was another thing I've been working hard throughout the years, throughout now, especially spicing things up with Quake Champions, where I really figured out myself, like fully, kind of.
Right. Obviously, people will know culturally. Germans love when someone's a winner, when someone's a champion, whether it's like the national football team, Bundesliga teams, whoever they support. I'd even say the classic example is obviously Michael Schumacher when he was at his peak. They love to support Germans who are successful. But in esports, actually, I would say this last 10 years has been a pretty bleak period for Germany. Like in Counter-Strike, they haven't been very relevant. In games like League of Legends, you have the odd player who's good, and even then they're often just okay player. There haven't actually been a lot of great German players in esports. Like, have you actually... Is that anything significant to you? Are you someone who cares about that aspect? Because in some ways, you're the guy flying the flag as it goes at the moment.
Yeah, of course, and even in the past, there are always moments I think about this, that we need something to just in Germany to to have more winners going on. Out of my career, being this duel player, I know how I have to approach situations and games. I wanna hang into how to become a really good player, and even like a very efficient team player in the end. It just makes me able to adjust to my environment a little better, I think. But it also just came with time. So, and we are talking about a lot of time here. 20 years almost, so that's a lot of experience, and not something that someone that is playing at a professional level for 5 years, for example, is able to pull off this easily. Like it's a lot of knowledge we are talking about here. Some are on the right path, like very early on, but for some it takes a little longer. But no matter who needs help, we are here. You can always ask us, and we will try to help. If no matter where you feel stuck, how you feel stuck, I'm always glad if I can help to give you a better approach, the right approach, maybe just to make a slight adjustment. I'm always happy to help out, and did so successfully just with Maestro Venger, who, like I said, 1 year ago, has been winning the online QuakeCon tournament, and we've been working together for a few years already. But he always, has been shaping up, has also putting a lot of work on himself, and that's something. Of course, we're talking a lot again with each other, so I know how his preparations are looking in tournaments, and I know how professional he's going into his preparation for tournaments. So it's very much on the same level I do. He already brings some before, but I also told him about some, and he's a very respected, especially in-game player for me, and of course, practicing so much with each other, against each other. He belongs to one of my most scariest opponents these days. So yeah, is it the right decision to do? Who knows? But I think it's good for the competition anyways. So
At the end of this interview, do you have any final message? Is anyone you want to thank or say hello to?
Of course. Hey, everyone! Thanks for all the support throughout my career. Thanks for always sticking to me and believing. Even sometimes we find ourselves a little down. I think downers are needed from time to time to just rise a little again. And thank you very much. Thanks to Big, of course. Wonderful wonderful, best orc I've ever been in my entire career, and I could imagine, to be fair. So thank you, everything. And yeah, I mean, we're not family. Always supporting me. My girlfriend, especially, is a big part of my life. Also, thanks to my son. I mean, it's not always that easy having a 14-year-old son that's understanding when I have to sacrifice time that I could spend with him. So, of course, that's not that easy to manage, but we are making it work together. And yeah, things are going well. And thank you, everyone. If I forgot something, I'm very sorry. And just, yeah, thank you, guys. That's really all I can say. Thank you very much.
Dankeschön. This video was kindly supported by Ahmed Hadju, Hades Good, Matt Pugnatio Racula, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Jensen Gore, Kovacevic, Ord, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Toucan, and as always, special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my upcoming content? Maybe you want to ask a question in my monthly AMA. Would you like teasers to find out who the guests are for upcoming interviews and shows? Maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy esports discussions with me that can go all over the place. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today, where, in the description box below, there's a Patreon link.